The UFC 314 press conference just took place featuring Alexander Volkanovski, Diego Lopes, Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett, Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull, Gene Silva, Bryce Mitchell, Carlos Prates, and Jeff Neal. This was a packed press conference, and it did deliver. It wasn't the best press conference I've ever seen in my life. However, Gene Silva and Bryce Mitchell stole the show. They had a massive back and forth. Volkanovski was singing. We'll get to that as well. I don't know why people hated Volkanovski for so long. He's such a cool dude. Either way, I think everyone kind of did their bit. Of course, there were a few of them that were just up there giving generic responses. I actually feel like Michael Chandler and Paddy Pimblett kind of got overshadowed at this press conference. And I think Gene Silva versus Bryce Mitchell is now the most anticipated fight on that pay-per-view, which I really, really enjoy. This is what we need in the sport. Controversy. Divide. You know what I mean? We need that back and forth. I just wish Gene Silva wouldn't have just spoke over him the entire time, making silly noises, and we actually got to get a bit of back and forth between the two of them where we could have some direct questions actually asked to Bryce Mitchell and then hear his response without Gene Silva telling him to shut up over and over again, trying to get a chant going. We'll get into all of it, though. So start off the card. Volkanovski says, he mentioned retirement, but as soon as the title fight opportunity was back, he hit the switch and was like, oh no, it's back on. And he felt the sort of energy coming back to him. And Diego Lopes was talking about the fact that, he thrives on, seizing the opportunity and just saying a bunch of generic things about their title fight coming up. They move on to Chandler and Pimblett. Chandler, I believe at one point said, they say Scousers don't get knocked out. It's time to put that to the test. And Pimblett and them, they're joking back and forth. It's nothing serious between Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler. And Pimblett starts saying he loves proving people wrong. And, that's what he does. The goalposts get moved whenever he fights. But he's willing to prove himself against a legit top prospect. Or top contender, in Michael Chandler. So they're going back and forth a little bit there. Then we get into Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva. Now, this was half of the press conference, okay? They ask a question. I believe they ask a question to Bryce Mitchell first, okay? And as he's about to go for his answer, Gene Silva is immediately shouting over him straight away. No hesitation whatsoever. The second Bryce Mitchell gets asked a question about the controversy, he was getting booed by the crowd. Which is interesting. He was getting booed by the whole crowd. They were going after Bryce Mitchell. Good little guys. And, Gene Silva immediately starts realizing, oh, this is my opportunity to get a fan base behind me. I'm going to just sort of play into the crowd booing Bryce and just sort of get chants going. He was getting chants going. He was trying to get them started a fuck Bryce Mitchell chant in the middle of him trying to answer his question. As Bryce Mitchell picks up the microphone. So he just starts screaming, fuck Bryce Mitchell. And then he starts barking again. Gene Silva loves barking. I guess he's at the ISHO speed of the UFC, just barking nonstop all the time, trying to get the crowd to bark as well. They start doing it. So there is something to Gene Silva here. You know what I mean? He's got a bit of that following now. It's good to have like a signature thing that you do and that your fans do. Pereira has Sharma, especially when you don't speak English. You know what I mean? So he has just barking. And then as he's barking, the crowd, like some subsection of the crowd, starts barking as well, like over and over and over again. So he's getting the crowd riled up. He's not letting Bryce talk, which annoyed the fuck out of me. I'll be honest with you about Gene Silva. It was fun. But then there's a point where you're like, all right, shut up, you little cringe fuck. You know what I mean? Let us have a bit of back and forth and actually hear what's being said. Eventually, Bryce finds his pockets in his windows to get some words in. Okay? Gene Silva's barking over and over again. You're barking up the wrong tree, motherfucker. Puts the mic down immediately. Bryce had that one in the chamber. Or did he? Maybe he just thought about it on the fly. But Gene Silva was barking over and over again. And Bryce hit him with that line, which I thought was pretty good. Bryce Mitchell was getting in his shots and his digs here and there, while Gene Silva was just sort of like standing up and laughing and maniacally gesturing to the crowd like, come on guys, get behind me. Bryce is evil, right? And he's just starting all of that shit and going after Bryce Mitchell and all of that bollocks. And Gene brought a globe to the press conference. I rate it. I do. It's selling the fight. I'm amped for that fight now. Really, really amped. I just knocked over a bottle. I knocked it over on my right hand. I moved it over to my left hand, and I gestured with my left hand and flung it off my fucking desk. Double hit. moved it out the way to stop hitting it, to a new position, and smacked it with the other hand instead. Okay? That's how animated I'm getting off camera with my hands right now. But now I've got some clear space. He brings up a globe. Starts holding it up. Gesturing to he loves it, dude. Gene Silva's loving that the crowd is now rallying behind him in spite of Bryce Mitchell, right? They hate Bryce. They're now going to support Gene Silva. So yeah, he brings up the globe to the conference, holds it up. And then Bryce actually says when Gene's holding up the globe, so many things were missed by Bryce because Gene was just going oh, 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 over and over again, barking and making crazy noises. Gene's holding up a globe in his hand, and Bryce literally says, you may not have heard this, oh, so you're a scientist now, tell us more. He's just holding a globe in his hand, and Bryce goes, oh, so you're a scientist now, huh? Tell us more, huh? And he's like waiting for an explanation from Gene, which never comes because nothing was translated between the two of them. And then what else? Gene says that Bryce will start seeing the world as round. I guess once he's done with him. Like, once I'm finished with you, you'll see the world as round. And the translator kind of stuttered his way through that sentence. And then Bryce said, and this is what I mean about things being missed by Bryce. Because Gene was just screaming over the top of him, fuck Bryce Mitchell. No, shut up. No, don't, no. Every time, it was at that point, yeah. That's what annoys me. I love that Gene's up there with a globe. I love that he's trying to get a fuck Bryce Mitchell chant going here and there. Over the top of someone is fucking so annoying, man. Especially like, no, as he's trying to answer. Like, let's hear from him, man. You're moving like Bear on the Jackson podcast. You know, not platforming Bryce all of a sudden, Gene Silva. What's going on here, buddy? Okay? Either way, though. He says he'll start seeing the world as round. Bryce says, and this is what was missed by Gene going, no, over and over again. He says, you're lucky you don't speak English because then people will think you're retarded. Which is kind of interesting. That got completely silenced out. I was listening to the whole press conference back thinking, I know Bryce was saying something, but I couldn't even hear it because the crowd's booing every time he picks up the mic and Gene Silva's making retarded noises nonstop. So he says, you're lucky you don't speak any English because then people will know you're retarded. And then puts his mic down again. And then Gene says, you're only here because of me. Don't pick up that mic. And I'm like, dude, it's fun. I loved the Gene Silva stuff. I'm amped up for the fight, but like, have the back and forth. Don't just like ride off the coattails of the crowd that already hates Bryce. You know? It did get a bit like, all right, man, let's have a bit of question here, question there. Both of you get to talk at each other. Because he just started screaming over him for the majority of it. And I could barely hear what Bryce was saying. But then that happened. And he said, you're only here because of me. Don't pick up the mic. And then Bryce says, when you're done, you can always tap. I don't know what he was saying there. And then Gene starts shouting over him again. Like, no. All of that. So fucking annoying, to be honest with you. Gene says, look at me. Stands up. Look at me. And he's got the globe in his hand. Look at me. And then Bryce, I'll look at you when we fight, buddy. And he's not looking at Gene at all. He looks like he's looking in the monitor. And I think Gene even referenced that as well. Like, Bryce was looking into the monitor off to the side. Like, technically looking at Gene, but not turning his head. You don't want to do what you're told up on a press conference. You know what I mean? That's just not going to happen. That's the golden rule. You don't do what you're told by another fighter. You got to deny it. You know? So they start talking back and forth again. Gene sits back down. Gene says, you don't believe in yourself, Bryce. And before that, Gene literally just goes and starts laughing crazily out of nowhere. He's loving it. He loves Gene Silva is also autistic. Okay? He just is. I know it's hard to tell, but he really is. You know, his way of moving and like animating himself is very like strange. He was just missing like an Elon Musk jumping like retarded star jump thing. You know? He was just missing some like real Elon Musk Sims emote movements, you know what I mean, like on the Sims or back in the day. That's how he was moving a little bit, so that's interesting. Gene says, you don't even believe in yourself, Bryce. And then Bryce says, I believe in the power of the Lord. And he starts, Bryce was mad, okay? He wasn't like angry. People in the chat were saying, oh, Bryce is gonna cry. Like, no, he's not gonna cry about it. He was mad though, like, oh, you're gonna get it now. He was proper angry at him at a certain point for talking over him for so long. So he says, you don't believe in yourself. I believe in the power of the Lord. You've got Lord tattooed across your chest. I have him in my heart, brother. You can believe in God, but you don't live by the word. And then they were going back and forth. And then Gene Silva says, everybody here believes in God, right? Not realizing that we're in a fucking faithless, fucking degenerate society. And everyone in the crowd's like, yeah. Meanwhile, none of them live by any level of principle. You know what I mean? Like, the whole crowd's probably got a beer and are fucking doing this, cocaine on the weekend, go clubbing with anything, and then they're like, yeah, we all believe in God. You know? You know? But Bryce can't fucking quote the Bible about the firmament. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, guys. It's an interesting dynamic in the world. So they start going off about that, going back and forth. And that's the end of the Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva thing, I guess. That's all it sort of summed up to. And that's kind of all they had to say about each other. But the best line from Bryce, I guess, was, you're barking up the wrong tree, motherfucker. Which was kind of a good response to Gene Silva barking like a fucking retard on the other side of the fucking press conference. So they stole the whole show. Other than that, Volkanovski had a moment, which we're going to get to. Pitbull had some good moments. I mentioned it earlier. Pitbull had some good moments. You know, he out of nowhere sort of spoke up, which we'll get to. But he was like selling himself as like, I'm the guy, you know, I'm a newcomer to the UFC. Even John Anik kind of put him on, like, how about it? Pitbull finally in the UFC. He's like a Chandler. He's like a Brazilian Chandler, like the Bellator guy. He's won belts. He's fought big names. He has a KO win over Michael Chandler in the first round, upper weight class. That's very impressive. I wish they would have sort of went in on that a little bit more. And I think they kind of did at one point. So Pitbull sort of made himself known. Yair was just the most basic fucking answers you've ever fucking heard in your life. And then Volkanovski. So they talk about back and forth trash talk. And they say, is it getting personal in the build-up? And Volk's like, no, it's not getting personal. The only thing I've done is talking about how his like emo hair is. And then Volkanovski just whacks out the song. Because tonight'll be the night that I will fall for you over again. Don't make me change my mind. And then it goes on way longer than it should, Volk. You shouldn't know all the lyrics. You know what I mean? Those are the lyrics everyone knows. I don't even remember what he went off on afterwards, but it was funny. Volkanovski taking the mick out of Diego Lopes. And Lopes is even laughing about it as well because he must have seen edits. I know there's edits out there with Lopez's hair in his picture with that song playing in the background. Over again, don't make me change my mind. And Volk's like kind of singing it pretty well. Volk loves to sing. He was even singing back in the day when he had hair on the come up at featherweight, and he recorded himself singing, I think, a In Sync song or something like that. I want it that way. And he was singing that to himself. So Volk loves to sing. He's got some pipes on him. Over again. Don't make me change my mind. It's actually fucking catchy as fuck. Like, that's going to be stuck in my head for a long time. Anytime I look at Lopes, I'm going to think of that song from now on. They're laughing back and forth. And then Volkanovski gets up and says, hey, you know what? I respect his hairline. It's actually crazy that Volk can go from his regular voice to that. You know? Hey, that's it. You know, obviously I respect his hairline at least, eh? Because I don't have one of those. Hey. And then even Oscar Willis is like, tell me about it. Because his shit's creeping back as well. But yeah, I respect his hairline, of course, because I don't have one of those, hey. Don't make me change my mind. He fucking immediately switches back to his regular fucking, obviously, we've done the specifics and looking to be active and, remind everyone of the division A. And he just goes back into that. Pitbull and Chandler discuss Pitbull's KO win. Not really. But it was sort of brought up that they had a bit of history, and like Chandler was asked, like, how would you advise Pitbull coming over to the UFC? And he said, yeah, you know, looking forward to seeing what happens. And generic Chandler response. And then Pitbull says something about, you know, I'm looking to climb up the rankings and do my thing. Lopes credits activity to his success. That's the big highlight from Diego Lopes. I guess I can mention Carlos Prates and Jeff Neal. They kind of had like a very cordial back and forth. Promising war. Jeff Neal's been in these positions before. He's just like, yeah, you know me, every time I show up, I put it on for the fans and like give them what they want to see. And to be fair, Jeff Neal does every time without fail, unless he fights Neil Magny, which I have no idea how he fucking lost that fight, by the way. But he does put it on the line every time. He has a win over Bilal Muhammad, so Jeff Neal's underrated for sure. Prates is very chill. It's weird seeing the fighting nerds because you assume they're all going to share the same personality, but you've got like Gene Silva. You've got Carlos Prates, so relaxed and chill speaking English. He's like high on weed, how calm he is. And then you've got Gene Silva on meth next to him. You know what I mean? Like a complete dynamic of energies. A complete opposite dynamic of energies. Like they're completely juxtaposed to each other. And yeah, that was pretty cool to see. Someone says Prates and Gene Silva is the difference between indica and sativa in my chat room. I thought that was a pretty good analysis. Hey, lad. Hey, everyone doubts me, love. I love proving dickheads wrong, lad. So Pimblett starts going off about that. Hey, they always move the fucking goalpost, lad, whenever I win a fight. Every time, lad. So I can't wait to see what they say when I beat Chandler, lad. So he starts going off about all that. And again, everybody doubts me every fight, lad. I love proving dickheads wrong, lad. There was even a Paddy the Baddy chant in the crowd. So the Paddy Pimblett fan base is still live and well. You know what I mean? Even in America, there's still the Paddy Pimblett fan base out there. They're chanting, oh, Paddy the Baddy. Yes, lad, eh? Chandler needs to stop adopting, lad. And they're going off. And Pimblett wants Ilya after Chandler. You know, he say, hey, I don't think Ilya gets near him, lad. Makhachev's too great for him, lad. He gets asked about the Makhachev-Topuria matchup. And then Paddy says, hey, I'd love to fight Ilya after I beat Chandler, lad. And then I want Oliveira and fucking Poirier, lad. And all the big fucking names, lad. He says you can't be considered the best unless you hold the lightweight belt. So he's going to have to go through the dangers eventually. So we'll see what happens in the Chandler versus Pimblett fight. It got a little bit overshadowed by Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva going back and forth. Volk promises activity as champion, and Pitbull calls out Volk down the line. He actually brought it up himself, which I liked. You know, they went back to Lopes after that, who also talked about activity if he were to become champ. And Volk was talking about, you know, if I get the belt, if I get it, hey, I'm going to remind you about the featherweight division, eh? And obviously, all that type of stuff, and, you know, I'd get in there and then defend against Evloev after, you know? And then they talk about that. Pitbull brings up that they made a bet online a while ago. I think it was a tweet from Pitbull saying, I bet you $1 million I'd beat your ass. And Volk was like, hey, let's see you get to the UFC first. And now Pitbull's in the UFC. So that actually has a bit more momentum behind it. And Volk just says, I'm looking to stay active. If I go through this and then beat Evloev and you're coming off a really good win over Yair, then we can talk. I think Pitbull's going to need more than just a Yair Rodriguez win. I think he needs to beat Yair and then maybe a winner of an Arnold Allen, Aljamain Sterling in the meantime, something along those lines. But the press conference was pretty good. One thing I noticed was Bryce is pretty fucking big compared to Gene Silva, which actually makes it more impressive that Gene did what he did to Drew Dober and actually won at lightweight on short notice. Bryce is a pretty fucking big featherweight, I guess, right? So yeah, pretty interesting. Looking forward to the fights, and I'm really looking forward to Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. You know, Gene was he's taken advantage of he has a fan base, but he's definitely like playing into the crowd's dislike of Bryce Mitchell because he, you know, questioned things. And he did it in such a way that obviously provoked a massive backlash. But, you know, don't say you want to go fishing with him. You have a nuanced take on history, maybe, but going fishing with him in his prime. He was good, you know what I mean. And then on to the Japanese internment camps and all that. Kind of interesting. I noticed everyone was laughing about Bryce believing in flat Earth. That annoys me, though. I will say this at the end. I don't believe in that at all, and I think it is dumb. I just don't know why. Like, dude, ask Khabib and Makhachev what their thoughts are on some things. They got some beliefs that don't really make some sense. But no media members like, get Bryce on this. He believes what's in that fucking dumb Bible. It's like the American Western nature is like, yeah, religion. Do you read in religion? No, just Christianity, actually. No, just Christianity. Sorry. That's like the Western mindset, right, towards religion. If you hear someone calling that religion, you say, do you really not believe in religion and believe in science? And then they go, no, just the ones that won't get me any backlash. It's like some pussy shit that they do. I just don't like that. If you don't believe in the religious stuff, you're right. I don't believe in it. You know what I mean? You're allowed to completely, but have some like consistency across the board, even with Strickland and his thoughts on certain things. Brother, what does Khabib and Makhachev think about the certain LGB? You know what I mean? But no one even bothers because they're scared of the backlash. It's like, don't act like you're like owning these guys. You're not. You're just going after something you're not going to get any backlash for. You know what I mean? Some lame shit in my opinion. But looking forward to the looking forward to the fights. Gonna be hyped for them. I honestly think that just bumped up Bryce Mitchell and Gene Silva on the card. I don't know about you guys, but that's the 4th fight down. That should be the feature fight now over Rodriguez versus Pitbull. That was the testing ground of who should be the feature fight of the card. Of course, you've got the main event in, what's it called? Volkanovski, Lopes, and then the co-main is Chandler, Pimblett. Huge fights with a lot of meaning and like, you know, a lot on the line in those matchups. The title's on the line in Volk Lopez, and then you got Chandler. Pimblett's huge. Pimblett's a huge name. Chandler's a big name as well. But I think that was the battle of the feature fight. And I think now the feature fight should 100% be Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. Let me know if I'm wrong. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Was pretty good overall. Over again. Don't make me change my mind. See you later.